Party people of the world! Do you know what time it is? It's music time. We are so pumped up to the jam to have you with us. I am Morgan Mitchell, and with me as always is Tanner Grover.
What's up, Morgan, and what's up, universe? You are indeed tuning into a podcast where two friends who love music, yet have virtually no musical acumen, take a deep dive into the vibes that really make us jive.
That's right, because if there's anything that unites us all, it's music. An audible sensation. To live without it is simply deprivation. So, we're here to hear and to share a little slice of a subject that gives us life.
Tick-tock, tick-tock. Are y'all ready to rock? Tell me, friends, what time is it on your clock?
It's music time! All right. Welcome, Jonah. Happy first episode ever interview. We are so incredibly thrilled you're here. I'm Morgan Mitchell. This is the It's Music Time podcast. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Well done, Morgan. I am Tanner Grover, and we are co-hosting with a very special guest. This is what we do. And today we are doing it with Jonah Bruce. All right.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
It's going pretty well, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Doing great. Summertime, staying busy. So, yeah.
As always, that's great. So, Jonah, we're a new podcast, and we're coming up with the format for the show. And one thing that we think we'd like to do as a lead-in to the show is a fun little game where we have our guests try to guess what song was number one on their date of birth. And your birthday was April 12th, 1987. So I'm not going to have you do this right out of the blue. It's a multiple choice game. All right. And
cool. Okay.
Yeah, we do have some options for you. So Morgan, what's option A?
Okay, so option A, on your birthday, April 12th, 1987. Option A is I Think We're Alone Now by Tiffany. So that's option A. Option B.
Okay.
Mall Queen herself.
Hey.
Option B, this is a classic duet by Aretha Franklin and George Michael. I Knew You Were Waiting for Me.
Okay.
All right. And C, on your birthday, the number one song could be I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For by U2.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. Seminal classic.
Okay.
Off the Joshua Tree.
Yep.
And then option D, and I think that's true for all of us, but I know I've had The Time of My Life by Bill Medley and Jennifer Lawrence from, that famous movie that everyone loves.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if you had to pick one of these options, what would it be? What was playing on the day you were born?
So this is the number one song on like what, the Billboard singles chart or something?
Correct.
Yes. You got it.
Okay. All right. Well, before we had multiple choice, I immediately was thinking, oh, maybe Michael Jackson, but Michael Jackson isn't in the choices, so that doesn't really help me with anything. Let's see here. Sting? Not Sting. Sorry, U2, which is funny. Still haven't found what I'm looking for. For some reason, I think Sting when I hear that song. But yeah, that's U2. But man, the movie, and I'm not sure if we need to not say the title for clearance reasons, but that movie was huge. I think right around then. I obviously don't know exactly. I could know, but I'm not a huge movie buff and wasn't technically alive quite yet. And what was the first option again? It sounded
Yeah,
maybe promising.
let's read them through again. So we've got A, I Think We're Alone Now by Tiffany. B, I Knew You Were Waiting for Me, Aretha Franklin and George Michael. C, I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For by U2. And D, I've Had the Time of My Life by Bill Medley and Jennifer
Warnes?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, I think I'm going to rule. I feel like I can rule. Well, I don't know C or B, rather, the Aretha song. The tune of that is not coming to my head, which I don't know if it's logical, but I just feel like I have to rule that out because the other three are definitely more ubiquitous. Yeah, I'm going to go C. I'm going to go C. I'm going to go with U2. I feel like maybe that album dropped in April of '87 or something, and
it's a great guess, but unfortunately, Jonah, you still have not found what you're looking for. It is, in fact, the less ubiquitous of the four. I knew it. You were waiting for me, Aretha Franklin. And
who knew?
Yeah, who knew?
Should have knew it. I should have gone against my instincts.
There was something in there, though. You were feeling it. Neither of us had heard that song or were familiar with it. We were just watching the music video earlier. It's a pretty hilarious music video.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
Anyway, well done. Very well done. There's no way of knowing these things.
Next time I'm going with the opposite of my instinct.
There you go.
There we go. I love
it that way.
That's great.
I love it. So let's introduce you, Jonah, a little bit. Talk about sort of some projects you have going on. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I think that's where we're headed.
Cool. So
sure.
Jonah's best known for Save the Jonah across all social media. So Jonah, I just candidly want to say Jonah crushed it in the band called Hello Newman for Tanner's 40th birthday bash, which is worth saying.
It was epic.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah, it was incredibly epic. So one of Jonah's projects is he's a member of Maine's premier 90s and 2000 cover band called Hello Newman. He also plays in lots of other collaboratives, including Quaint AF, and also performing solo gigs with his looping pedal. So a little bit more about that. The immersive weight of Jonah, or the immense weight of Jonah's talent is immeasurable, as he'll record a beat and then the bass line and then the chords on the spot and then be able to jam out for everyone to enjoy. So this sort of process happening real time to make this really rich sound. It's such a joy to listen to. Jonah, thank you so much for taking time to chat with us, especially us being such a new podcast. You really just jumped in and we couldn't appreciate you more. So thank you.
Cool. Yeah. Nope. You're welcome. It's good to be here. I love podcasts in general. I pretty much always have these things in my ear, keep me company while I'm, working on whatever it is I'm doing. And so when Tanner come saying, we need someone to interview and we're starting this thing, I said, sure, why not? It's
That's cool.
Cool thing to do.
We are excited to have you. Jonah, tell us a little bit about, growing up in music culture, and, more specifically in Maine music culture. I mean,
Sure.
What's that scene been like for you?
Huh. Yeah. Well, first off, my earliest exposure to music, as a kid, young child, was 90s country, radio in maybe,
we lost you.
Oh,
you're
are we back? Okay.
You're back.
You're good.
Back.
All right.
90s country. That's what we
do. So that's my earliest exposure to music, and it was all cassettes back then. So there's songs, deep cuts ingrained in my head of just every little thing too. You only had a few tracks, or you could listen to the singles on the radio, which also gets you a lot of repetition. So I joke sometimes, like I can sing you back like the deepest cut Garth Brooks like steel guitar solo that's in the 8th track and 4 minutes in or something. It's kind of silly. but then as I grew up, I remember middle school and high school, really getting into the local scene. Well, I guess middle school, I got into the heavy alt rock, what some will affectionately call butt rock these days. So like Limp Bizkit and Korn and all that stuff. And and I still
stuff.
I find that we're about to get a visitor here.
Sure.
I think this is my cat. This is my cat Lillian.
Hi,
Lillian. She's gonna hang out probably.
God, she's sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, so I got into the butt rock for a while, angsty middle schooler. And then I remember getting into WCYY heavily and learning about how intense the local scene was. Not intense, but, thriving, how healthy it was. And learning about bands that were on the heavier side. Like I remember my first favorite local band was a band called Six Gig. And they were, tailor-made for CYY and that sort of grunge, but not like full-on fast, like punky stuff. There was definitely, melodic, a lot of melodic stuff going on. And I remember realizing slowly, the first realization, like, oh, these people are right here. I grew up in Windham, and it's like, oh, that's 20 minutes down 302. I can go see these shows soon when I'm old enough or whatever. And that was, that immediately kind of, I still operate on what that feeling to this day was like. We have this awesome area that seems to just thrive with local arts, and music being a huge component of that. It's not something to be taken for granted. And so back then, those guys were just other rock stars. They're playing State Theater, just like, bands like 311, Sum 41, two bands that I probably saw 3 or 4 times at State Theater throughout the years. And here are these local guys that are just going up there too. And then you can talk to them outside the show, or, so it's always, I think, been part of it. I don't know if, clearly, like, I have the knack for music, and I knew that when I was listening to the country radio in, the 90s. But, would, if I was living just anywhere else in the United States, would that scene be there to sort of cultivate me, or even just like inspire me and so many others, So yeah, I think fair to say it's a huge part of what I've been able to do, and in sort of building a freelance music career.
Sure, and you've so you're a member of Hello Newman, right? Which my first exposure was unintentional. I remember this is probably back in 2006.
Probably common, yeah.
Yeah, and I went to Bullfini's, right?
Heard of it?
Heard of it. After seeing Interpol at the State
Cool.
Theater. Yeah, it was a great show. But Hello Newman was the band at Bullfini's. And how did you get involved with them? Because I can't imagine you were a part of that in 2006.
I was not. Yeah.
Right, but you've become, a key member of their group now, and performing all over the state. I know you've got, I think, a show at Lone Pine coming up, and then you've got your summer cruise series, something like that. So you're doing that, but you've also forayed into some, original projects with Quaint AF, which I assume stands for Also Fudge. Maybe talk just a little bit about, being a member of a cover band, and also having the space to create your original material, and what kind of an outlet does that provide for you?
Sure. First, I have to address the AF, because I've been joking this and actually loving hearing other people's takes by literally saying it stands for whatever you want it to stand for. It's just AF, you know.
Love that.
Clearly, yes, the Also Fudge was obviously the original.
Yes.
And yes, so I will say 100% correct on that, Tanner. But yeah, no, the AF, it's dynamic. It could just be AF. It could be, you know, apple fritter.
It's perfect. It's perfect. The pairing of the word quaint. This is sort of this like elegant, dainty kind of ironic word with quaint. Like it's just
right.
so it's so memorable. I love it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes.
Yeah, we landed on a good one. We can do a deep dive into that at some point if you want.
Sure.
But yeah, so with Hello Newman, they started before I was gigging in bars. We crossed paths because of Bullfini's. I was playing there every first Friday with a band called the Running Gags, and we were similar vibe. You know, the covers that we did were there was a lot of crossover, a lot of overlap with what Newman did then and does still, and but we also had just about half or maybe a third of our songs were always original. So we were trying to do the bar thing and originals at the same time, which is somewhat tough to do, although I think it's easier now. Back then, I remember people kind of saying, you know, you're doing this wrong. You got to have cover band and then the original band and keep them separate somehow. But anyways, we crossed paths because they were doing every Thursday and we were first Friday. And maybe they would, you know, fill in for a Friday or when the, you know, big days came along, like St. Patrick's Day, you know, they would have 4 bands throughout the day. So maybe they were after us or we were after them or something. But became fast friends and with like Jim and Tuck and Derek, the original members there. And at the time I had maybe 4 or 5 years of just fooling around on a saxophone under my belt. And I knew they had horn players too that were kind of half members or featured. They'd come in and they'd play every 3 songs or so. And so they could, you know, do ska songs that were also just as big in the 90s. And man, the place would erupt for that stuff. And so I eventually just said, you know what, screw it. I'm going to just approach them. And I think I texted, I can't remember who exactly it was, probably Jim, and said, hey, do you guys want an out? Like, I see you have a trumpet and a trombone and I play alto saxophone and I'm just kind of looking for a horn section to play with. Cause I've always been, you know, solo or featured in a band or just in a jam session and kind of just unstructured and just kind of noodling and kind of improvising on the spot, which is fun. But after a while, you know, I didn't pick up saxophone to just noodle all the time. I fell in love with the funk horn section and just the big sound of really good horns that play together almost as one instrument. And so I figured they have this sort of, you know, featured little crew of horn players. I'll just offer to play for free because I know it's Thursday night and it's whatever, 2008, and that's not going to be a hugely paying gig. So, you know, throw me a couple of beers or whatever at the time. And so that's when I sort of did my first stint with Hello Newman, if you will. And I did that for 3 or 4 years as I could. You know, we were featured members, so the show would go on without us. And clearly they already had at least a 2-piece horn section. So, and that was really, I think of those gigs really fondly, you know, because I was half working and I was getting to be in the horn section, which was a new experience at that point. Something that I love listening to, but now I got to play with and, you know, find where my harmony is and stuff like that. And also play these iconic ska songs and swing, you know, Zoot Suit Riot and The Impression That I Get, Mighty Boss Tones. And so that was really cool. Then I got pretty busy with an actual funk band that I still play with occasionally, or just we don't play that much anymore. But we were back then, that's the band called Shutdown Brown. And we started gigging pretty heavily. Like, I think we were doing probably on average once a weekend throughout the year. And it just, I ended up sort of drifting away from Hello Newman. It also became more of a gig to go in there and just play for a couple of beers, even though you're there all night. So you drift apart, and they anyways, smash cut to like 2020. It's like the COVID lockdowns, and I get an email from Jim and Derek asking if I want to be full-time bass for them when the gigs come back. And I was so down on not having any gigs. It's like a light, like you're stuck in a well and there's a light coming down, like, oh, this means I will have gigs as soon as they're available.
Sure.
At that point in time, it was almost like you were scared. Are any of my bands going to make it through this? And surely enough, a few of them really didn't at the time. So, but yeah, so when I got that email, it was like, hell yes, guys.
Yeah.
Good to hear from you. And then fast forward a few years now, the gigs came back slowly. Hello Newman is just a household brand in terms of local bands and local cover bands in Portland. So I knew that like that was going to be it too. It's going to be, when gigs come back, it's going to be the big names or the well-established bands that are all just literally just hit pause and can go again when it starts. So it was just a huge blessing for them to call me up. And so, now a few years later, we are full throttle. We are booking like crazy. Jim at some point down there, because I have already had a bunch of booking experience with all my other bands, figured out that it could take some of the load off of him. And so over the course of a few years, I think I just took on more and more of it. And then we sort of made it official that like I'm the booking manager now. And it felt weird at first to be like coming into this so established band, but at the same time, then I just kind of shifted the perspective. It's like, he's done it for like 13, 14 years. Like, he's almost earned the break from it, because it is like a full job to, answer emails and keep all the dates in line and communicate with every client and all that. So
it's funny when you're talking about 2020 and how they reached out to you. I think to me, that really goes back to earlier when you were talking about the close knitness of the Maine music scene, and just, and it speaks to your talent as well. That, they're reaching out to you and saying, hey, we want you to come on board and be this full-time band member. I think that, if you weren't in Maine, maybe something like that doesn't happen, but because of how ingrained you've been in that scene, I mean, that says a lot. I think that's very, very cool.
Yeah, for sure. I fully agree with that. I recall the years where like I hadn't maybe spoken with them for some amount of years, very, busy with other stuff. And I knew that they were the whole time too, but it always came back up every so often. I'd be in a conversation, likely at a gig during a set break. And, Thursday night at Bullfini's comes up, and then Hello Newman is stated, and it's like, it was kind of this thing where, and if I was talking about any past projects I played with, because everyone at that point kind of knew that I was playing in lots of bands. I'd mention Hello Newman, and that'd be the one where they're like, "Oh, Hello Newman," and I don't remember specific, exact, who it was when I talked to them, but like, I remember times being maybe even way up north or talking to someone from way up north, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Hello Newman." It's like, oh man, those guys really, they figured it out. In terms of just, being that they found that niche, that 90s alt rock
Yeah,
that
yeah.
cover band and set list specifically. And they've evolved it through the years, but it's almost like they just refined it to be this sort of like almost like patented thing. it just ramps up and creates the party.
Well, I think one niche that you found that we want to deep dive into a little bit is you perform locally. Is it every Wednesday in Poland? Is that right? What's
Yep.
what's the name of the place?
Nonesuch River Brewery.
Nonesuch River. Okay.
Okay.
It just so happened that my water glass is a Nonesuch glass, but yes, every Wednesday at their new Poland location on Route 26.
How convenient, man! Some of the best spring water around.
There you go.
So looping though is what that's kind of like your expertise. And Morgan and I would be remiss if we didn't kind of deep dive a little bit into the art of looping. And Morgan, how do you want to transition here?
Sure. Yeah. Well, we took some time and looked at a lot of your work on your social media and just really enjoyed, watching the dynamic in the group as well. And so like you as a multi-talented musician doing, working with all these different bands and then doing your individual work, we were so taken with this quality of looping and the layering of sound that you're doing as a solo artist. And it got us thinking about looping as a concept. And here on the It's Music Time podcast, we're like a little offbeat, we're thinking about strange questions. So one question that sort of came to mind when we're thinking about this idea of looping and the style of looping when you're working as a solo artist, but you're creating this really rich, dynamic, complex sound with all these different layers. If you had to loop or sample ambient sounds from your worlds, it could be the natural world, it could be the urban world, it could be childhood movie tape. I mean, it could be anything. What sounds in your world would you want to sample and loop if you had the opportunity? Like what sounds speak to you in your everyday life, and what would you want to incorporate?
Interesting. Well, okay, so the easiest path to an answer is what would be the most valuable to add to like the current set that I have, the current repertoire that I'm playing out. And so the first thing that came to mind of a sound, so now I'm thinking, really famous, popular songs that have some sort of thing sampled that's a sort of non-musical sound. And I have a really good version with the loop pedal where I do Time by Pink Floyd.
Nice.
Which starts off, as everyone knows, with a whole chorus of alarm clocks and cuckoo clocks. And and so that would be a really high value one to somehow figure out, or even just, I don't know. Then you could just take the sample before the track. I don't know how on the nose I'd want to be with it. But certainly that would be a fun one to experiment with.
I like it.
But yeah, because I have a way of building that up and using the 3 tracks on my loop pedal to sort of to do. It's mostly for the intro. Once the song really starts and the beat kicks in, the loop almost just stays on the one beat, and I just sort of play the song over the beat. But the intro is the whole point of that song. Well, I can't do the alarm clock, so technically I'm starting after the alarm clocks in my current version of it. But it would be really cool to build something in like that. And currently it's funny that's the question and the topic or the subtopic here, because currently I don't use any pre-programmed samples with my loop station. Not that I couldn't or don't want to someday, but it's only been, it was another, I've messed around with looping pedals, or a pedal that has a loop function on it, but it's really a delay pedal, which doesn't get you much, in terms of looping functionality. So I've been messing with that for years and years. In fact, when I was in college, I went to Maine for computer engineering, and I got I got them to let me basically choose a capstone project that was building a loop pedal
What?
with actual, with electronic components. And it was pretty sick. I remember even choosing to not have a partner because I didn't want to compromise at all on it. I didn't want them to come in and say we can't do this, or I just wanted to do it. So it's too bad I have that not with me, but too bad I didn't bring it out. But maybe I can send you guys a picture of it later. Actually, it might be on my Instagram.
Yeah, that's
somewhere deep in the annals. But anyway, so
I love that you didn't want a partner. You didn't want Garfunkel messing it up.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. Also, how cool you studied, did you say computer engineering, computer science?
Computer engineering, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Do you think that part of your brain influences the way that you build music as well, the way that you sort of think about?
100%, yeah. And certainly, like, it just makes everything easier around the gig. Setup and tear down is half the job.
True.
So being able to troubleshoot on the fly is fully informed by that sort of right brain world.
Sure.
But I was kind of a late comer to music. I really didn't play guitar or have a guitar till like sophomore year or so, high school.
Really?
So I remember like wanting to be, in band and trying instruments out. I wasn't ready for wind instruments back then, I don't think. I really kind of wanted to be a drummer first. But never really got the opportunity, and then eventually ended up learning guitar in high school. And I remember trying to decide between, there was a like audio recording technology program somewhere in Massachusetts, or go to Maine for computer engineering and, get a day job and then gig, just go gig at night. And so I opted with the latter. But I found ways, just like the capstone to incorporate music into that. And I was playing like crazy as much as I could outside of classwork and social life up in Orono. So, but yeah, and I also did I got a few prerequisites waived to take a jazz improv class in the music program and have it count as an elective. So, so I could, because I was good enough at guitar at that point to like, know what scales were, and I knew it would be a good thing for me. And I definitely, it definitely rearranged or added more perspective. And now, those lessons you learn are permanent. So you learn about soloing over chords and all that. And the important thing was you didn't need to know sheet music. I read that it was in the description of the course. So I was like, here's one I could actually do. I can't read a lick of sheet music, but I'm good at guitar and I can record you a sample if you want. And I'm good at memorizing stuff, which was a really big part of that class, that jazz improv class, was like memorizing the forms and being able to, play over them. So
that's so funny. I went to USM following a stint at UNE college, 9 years, best of my life. Still not a doctor, but I made it a point. I took a lot of introductory music courses, just out of like sheer interest. One course was called Fundamentals of Music, and my teacher, Mr. Mark Piszczek, was a jazz flautist, basically, and he plays jazz flute, just like one Ron Burgundy.
Jazz flute.
Yes, jazz flute. But it's jazz in itself, the way that can just one instrument can kind of take over an entire piece, kind of blew my mind in terms of like being the polar opposite to, what we know commonly on the radio within a pop music framework, and just kind of how you're able to bend and meld all those different pieces to make new styles of pop music. So like earlier you were talking about, ska, right? And how, ska found its way into the mainstream in the late 90s with bands like Mighty Mighty Bosstones or No Doubt or Rancid. And I know that's not jazz, but I'm trying to think of a jazz group that kind of made that foray into pop music off the top of my head. Can you think of something like that?
Well, I can think of some jazz groups. I don't know if they're like super into the pop side, but well, I guess there's one actually one of the songs I picked for the playlist there is by Jamiroquai, and they certainly are a bunch of jazz trained everything. A pretty big band, if I recall. I think it's led by the front guy, and it's they can end up with, maybe I've seen videos that look like 12 musicians on stage, and they're definitely like, their sound is more funky and disco, but that's all jazz set to a more less jazzy beat in a way, you know what I mean, less swinging and more like 4 on the floor, straightforward. So but they definitely hit the pop charts big with Virtual Insanity, their ubiquitous song, if you will, and they had a few others, I think. I don't think it's fair to call them a one-hit wonder, but they certainly did have the huge one that made them a household name. And I remember seeing that music video of the lead guy. I believe he goes by JK, like JAYKAY, and I remember seeing the video of like the camera with the weird circle outer zoom, like outward zoom, so it's all like his face is all big and the room is tiny, and it's like he's got the big white hat on, the whole room is white, and he's like a white jumpsuit, and he's just rocking it. And I remember that song being catchy as hell, and I didn't really get into them till years later, but man, they have jazz chops, no doubt. And like some of the chord stuff that they do, and especially when you get into their deeper tracks, as would go with most artists, things get a little more complicated, and I remember listening to them and kind of hearing specifically sections where they're like, this is for the bassist, and this is where we showcase the bassist. And I remember hearing and observing things in the mixes like, oh, this is what you do when you want to highlight the bassist, because everyone else has to play along and literally play along, but create that space for the bassist to shine, for example. And they also, they have tracks where they're 7-8 minutes and they just go around and let everyone do that. And that's really the core, just sort of, maybe theme of jazz is to do that, give everyone their turn, go around the room, let everyone shine, and then but keep it going the whole time. So you got to know how to hang back in the mix, and even the nuance of if I'm hanging back in the mix while the drummer's going, I do this, but if I'm hanging back in the mix while the bassist is going, I'm doing this. Wow. And the levels of creativity there run deep,
Right.
Stunning. So good. And remind us again of the song that you added to the playlist that's by the group.
Oh, yeah. So Little L by Jamiroquai.
Okay.
And
awesome.
I want to say it was a single, but I don't know if you guys will probably want to talk about that later.
No, I love that. That's a perfect transition.
Yeah.
Sure.
Let's do our mix it up portion. So this song that you're chatting about, anything else you want to add about why you chose it, or what spoke to you about it, or its role in your life?
Yeah. Well, it's been more recent. I definitely chose 4 that are more recently are right now, because I don't know. I feel like that's, it would be tough to decide going back down my musical timeline on just 4. So I was just like, here are 4 that, I'm going to put on when I'm feeling X, Y, or Z. But Little L is it's just a driving, it's kind of disco-y, but it's more funky to me. But it just kicks in with the drum beat. And then they always have strings. They have all these orchestral elements going on in their songs, a lot of them. And this one might be the tops for me in terms of that, because, and I guess it's maybe one of the only songs where I wait for that violin part. Like normally it's a horn part I'm waiting for it to be like, did that boot out, you know, but this one is like, I remember in the chorus too, there's this like these tiny little violin licks that come in between like the hook lyrics, the chorus lyrics, and I just wait for those. And, but that's just the the cherry on top. Like the whole thing is awesome. Listen, you can basically, I can listen to the song 10 times in a row and not get bored because I can pick something different out each time and sort of focus on it. You know what I mean?
I love that. Totally. Yeah.
That's cool. How about you, Morgan? What
did I choose for the...
What song did you want to add to our Mix It Up playlist?
Yeah.
And for all of our listeners, just so you know, this is a new segment. We're trying to have a playlist that accompanies each episode. And so Jonah's been kind enough to contribute 4 songs. Morgan's contributing 4, as am I. And then all together we have this collaborative that you'll be able to click on in the link when we post this on Spotify and other various social media accounts. So Jonah highlighted a Jamiroquai song. What do you want to highlight, Morgan?
Well, I chose 4 different songs, obviously, but the one that I think is really sticking out to me is called Kickback by Omar Apollo. Do you know Omar Apollo, Jonah? Do you know his? I
don't. No. I'm unfamiliar.
Yeah, he's a younger artist, Mexican-American young man, really talented, incredible range in what his styles are. I believe his dad was a mariachi player and really plays with different genres of pop, of R&B, of funk, of more, almost more traditional or classical. Like his voice is incredible and his range is amazing. But this song Kickback has an amazing bass. It has an amazing sort of, it's got a lot of like momentum. It really lifts you into the chorus. And that's the one that I added. I think I listened to a couple of the songs that you added, and it made me kind of go through what I've also been listening to recently. And Omar Apollo is someone I've been following for a few years, but he just came out with a brand new album. And this is one of his older songs, but definitely have a listen because he's so talented. And again, the range, like just one of those artists that can kind of sing and play in so many different spaces. And it sounds
nice,
very rich. So what about you, Tanner?
So the one song I want to highlight is My Name is Jonas by Weezer, because I figured, with our guests, we're only off by one consonant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I've seen Weezer. I've been fortunate enough to see them a couple of times. In 2006, I saw them at the Coliseum in Lewiston. And then a year ago, I saw them.
I did too.
Did you?
Ah.
Okay. Do you remember the Fray opening up for them by chance?
Sure do.
Do you remember the Fray handing out, I think it was vegetables to the audience?
I don't recall that, but it sounds like that could have totally happened. I mean, wow, maybe I do. Maybe you're jogging my memory.
Yeah. I've got that.
That's awesome.
A very extensive long-term memory. Short-term, I'm terrible, but long-term, I'm all about. But yeah. So My Name is Jonas. I saw Weezer last summer in Bangor, and this year is the 30th anniversary of the Blue Album. It's now known as the Blue Album, which means we're all very old.
Yes.
Yeah, but I did look it up because, believe it or not, there's a Weezerpedia. There's a pedia for everything. There's probably a Jonahpedia, and you don't even know it. There's probably a Morganpedia. But anyways, apparently that song, some people interpret it that it's about a guy who gets injured at work, and then insurance denies his injury claim, and then the workers are going home.
Really?
Apparently, the Weezerpedia, whatever that means. But yeah, there's a fun little fact about My Name is Jonas. They should probably read it to my name is Jonah. I thought that'd be more appropriate.
Yeah, that would have been nice. I have played that song in a few bands through the years, and I guess they were only bands that I was singing lead in. So you can bet that I dropped the S whenever we played it, obviously. But yeah, I get Jonas a lot, and I am totally, I'm never offended when someone gets the name not quite right. I get Noah a lot, or Noel, and my parents named my little brother Jacob, so I get that a lot too. They didn't do us any favors there. We used to get, that was just family members couldn't keep us straight, but no. I digress. That song is definitely a special one. I remember it not being in my A list of Weezer songs, just because of the song. Like, I was kind of hoping for me to like it more when I first heard it, and that was so long ago. I came into Weezer probably a little later. I had to backtrack for the Blue album. I remember my first Weezer exposure was when they played on SNL and they played Hash Pipe, and I was blown away. I was like, how have I not heard of this Weezer? Because this song is got that dun 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 driving everything, and man, and then he comes in and it's this high falsetto thing, and I learned pretty quickly that was an outlier for how Weezer sounded, a little bit, but of course, over time you come to love all the classics, and the Blue album is, one of their most solid albums for sure. And is My Name is Jonas, is that the first track?
That is. It's the first track.
Yeah, first track on the Blue album, right? Yeah. And but yeah, it would make sense to me that it's about definitely some sort of union strike or some sort of worker strike, with that line that it sort of closes out on and repeats the whole way there. But I kind of like that about Rivers Cuomo's lyrics from Weezer. He is a good way of telling the bits and parts of the story that you need while letting you fill in the rest. And I've actually heard interviews with him, or maybe little sound bites where he talks about the sort of, I think we share a right brain musical thing, because I know that he uses literal spreadsheets of lyrical phrases. I've heard, don't quote me, maybe this is on Weezer, I'm sure it'd be on Weezerpedia actually.
Sure, yeah.
But I feel like I heard that where for lyrics he was having trouble at some point. Maybe it's a story, but so he just started a spreadsheet, and it just grew and grew and grew and grew and grew. And I remember hearing that, and it stuck with me, because I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense now, why their lyrics sound the way they do, and why they have that unique sort of appeal the way they do, and how it matches him and his stage presence and his sort of understated everything, even though he's like the rock star and the light. It's kind of a cool dynamic that's definitely unique to Weezer. So
yeah, I think what's impressive about them is their ability to stay relevant for so long. Because I mean, the album came out in '94, which was really the tail end of grunge, and that writer's block you're talking about. I know a little bit about Weezer's backstory. So they wrote Pinkerton after the Blue album, which was kind of like an emo album before emo was emo, and then it wasn't well received, and he got really depressed and developed this writer's block. And then it wasn't until, I think, the process you're talking about that became what was the Green album, with like Hash Pipe and Island in the Sun and all that. And I don't know if he still maintains that process, but what a way to formulate all these iconic, pop rock alternative songs, and relevant for 30 years.
So that's how he used it to get out of a writer's block. I must have not remembered that part, or not caught it, because that's awesome, and it makes perfect sense. Like, why not?
Yeah, it's so fascinating, isn't it? Like, thinking about creative process in general and all different mediums. Like, I think sometimes when thinking abstractly about creativity, it's like, well, sometimes you have to wait for the muse to arrive or something in your life will shift. And then there's another piece which like sometimes it's just about like almost the drudgery or the almost this mundane just like trial and adjustment and trial and error of just like as many variations as possible until you hit on something, and just keeping that pen moving and putting your head down, and just kind of like almost the boring work of it can release the wheels again. But sometimes it can feel a little monotonous and never ending. But I'm always fascinated by sort of the way the linear and the nonlinear work together in order to create movement and creative process, for sure.
Yeah. That tedious stuff. If you want to, I remember feeling like, learning my first songs on guitar, first riffs even. And I had this Ibanez classical guitar that I bought off a friend. So for guitar newbies or guitar people that don't know the difference between a classical and like a standard guitar neck, the classical is wider and fully flat. So barring your finger on it is a lot tougher. And I had no idea for like over a year. But I remember the feeling of trying to play like a Green Day riff or something, and it just hurting just to do a single chord. And I remember the realization, like, oh, you have to love like really sucking at this for a long time to like make anything, make anything good happen out of it. You just have to enjoy this process of it hurting and you not sounding good. And that, in my head, I'm like, cool, I can do that. I see where it's going. And I know that clearly here's all these examples of people just able to do it effortlessly. So if I can just, kind of keep with it and deal with bleeding fingers, and like I was bleeding in unique places on this finger, my left hand, because of that classical neck. I'm trying to learn bar chords where you bar your first finger over, multiple strings.
Wow.
And I'm sliding it up and down the neck, and like literally the metal frets are just cutting this area on my finger. So I was, bleeding on the guitar. Like there was also, it's a classic blood on the guitar story.
Is that where the handle "Save the Jonah" come from?
Not quite. It's from that time. It honestly, there's not a great story to it. It's just a good old friend of mine, still a friend of mine. But in high school, back before, this was like on the dawn of virality actually being a thing. And Busted Tees was a great website for funny t-shirts. And he just sent me probably a link over AOL Instant Messenger or something for this t-shirt that just said "Save the Jonah" on it. It had a little guy running from a whale. And I was like, this is the quickest buy. It was the quickest $20 I've ever spent. And I remember being like, oh yeah, you can just buy things on the internet now. So I have to buy this right now before, Well, actually, there was another Jonah in my graduating class. I remember thinking that. It's like, I need to have this shirt before he does.
I love it. Oh man.
So anyways, it stuck with me. If you dig deep enough, you could probably find a picture of me in high school or college wearing that shirt.
We're going to find it. We're going to dig it
go
out.
ahead.
We are,
Feel free.
So Jonah, that is pretty much our episode.
I think we've done it.
Yeah, this has been an awesome experience getting to talk to you. Why don't you take a minute to plug your socials and give us an idea of where we might find a picture of you in that t-shirt?
Oh, I mean, all over Facebook, probably. I don't know. You could probably just Google it now.
I love it.
Okay. Yeah. At Save the Jonah on everything. I'm primarily on Instagram. I think my Facebook profile is hooked up to that username, but you can usually just find me. I don't really have a solo entity Facebook page yet. It's still just my personal profile, but I probably should do that soon. But anyways, mostly Instagram is how I like to, interact with social media. I started a TikTok. I'm never on it, but go ahead and follow me there if you want.
Sure.
And yeah, besides that, I do have a website that I made this past year. It's savethejonah.com, or you can type in johnahbruce.com. They'll both take you there. That has full list of the shows that I'm playing, any project, but obviously primarily solo is I'm playing the most solo right now. So that's most of the list. And yeah, every Wednesday at Nonesuch in Poland. Not every, like most Wednesdays, there's some Wednesdays I can't make. But it's a weekly residency. And Quaint AF is going to be doing a show this August on the 22nd. It's a Thursday night at Portland House of Music. It's a Blink-182 tribute. We're doing an original opener set, and then our friends Frenzy are going to play a set of their originals. We're all going to sprinkle some Blink tunes in, and then it's kind of a bunch of guys in Quaint AF, and then our friend Connor Page is coming back into town to reunite we had a Blink-182 tribute called Aliens Exist. It's one of their songs off of Enema of the State. And we did that in 2019. So this is kind of a reunion show for that 5 years later. And we'll be doing it. So that'll be a full headlining set of Blink-182 classics, big hits and a couple of deep cuts that we love. So that's my next big show coming up. Oh, and we have a band debuting this Sunday at the Porthole. That's a country band that I'm so excited for, because like I said, we'll tie it all back to being a 3-year-old in a Ford Tempo listening to Shania Twain cassettes and Garth Brooks and Travis Tritt. So me and my friend Megan, who we grew up on the same road, we've been building a little country cover band for over a year, and we're finally debuting it on Sunday, July 7th. So I don't know if this is posted before then or not, but it was great if it was.
Yay! Oh, we're so excited. So Wednesday nights, we've got July 7th, and then that August 22nd show is the Blink-182. Okay, right on.
And Hello Newman all over the place all the time. HelloNewmanBand.com to check them out and us out. Yeah.
Love it.
That's awesome.
All right.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Jonah. And we'll plug ourselves, but we also want to let our viewers know that Jonah has been kind enough to share what we're going to call an encore performance of his original song, Face the Music, which is also one of my favorite Bill and Ted movies. It was the third in the franchise, came out over COVID. Highly underrated.
Good to know.
Much like this song. And I think it's definitely worthy of a Tiny Desk concert submission, in my estimation.
Thank you.
Absolutely, man. We're excited to share it.
Totally.
And we're excited for our listeners to hear it. We are at It's Music Time on Spotify.
Yep.
And on social media, you can find us at It's Music Time Podcast on Instagram as well as YouTube. Mm-hmm. We'll have the video from this interview up on our YouTube and the audio available on our Spotify. Morgan, want to take us home?
Yeah, so thank you again, Jonah. Like it's something pretty special to share time out of your day to just like chit chat about music and your passion, and we don't take that lightly. So again, huge appreciation to you, and incredibly excited to see what you're up to, what is coming for you, and to just follow your journey. And maybe next time we have you on the show, you can show us your pedal or find a picture of it or something, because how cool is that? I mean, I was so struck by 100%. A lot of what you said, but I was really taken with the fact that you studied computer engineering and that you really like have this technical brain and the crossover between those two real arts. So that would be awesome. But thank you, listeners. Thank you, Jonah. Thank you, universe. And we'll catch you next week on the It's Music Time podcast. Until then, see you later, Jonah.
Thanks, guys. Bye. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So undercover, so precise, it wasn't sober. Unlike her to set those sights on me. I'm in the headlights, she's the apple in the orchard. Unlike me to freeze so sinfully, but I did and would once more, and will over and over again. And there's nothing wrong with that. We finish strong, no sacred things now. I'm not ready to go face the music yet, but I'm so into you. And at our weakest it was far, far, far from over. What we had could not be denied. We traveled up to Maine and made love in the clover. I wrestled with you like my bride. That's what I did and would once more, and will over and over again. And there's nothing wrong with that. We finish strong, no sacred things now. I'm not ready to go face the music yet, but I'm so into you. A tragic time to need a little distance. The kindest hearts we can always pay. The manifesto does not feature you gone so long without me. And there's nothing wrong with that. We finish strong, no sacred things are now. I'm not ready to go face the music yet, but I'm so into you, so into you. There's nothing wrong with that. We finished strong, no sacred things are left for us now. I'm not ready to go face the music yet, but I'm so into you. But I'm so into you. But I'm so into you.
The It's Music Time podcast is an independent passion project produced by Tanner Grover and Morgan Mitchell. The theme song for this podcast is by Ben Shepherd, the artist known as Yay Yay. Find him on Instagram at Yay Yay Music. Thanks for tuning in to the It's Music Time podcast. See you next time.